once again here at the 2013 Cattle Industry Convention, and standing here with me is Dr. Bob Weaber, beef cattle specialist for K-State University. Bob, tell us a little bit about some challenges producers across the country are having these days.
Sure. One of the things as I interact with our cow-calf producers in Kansas and more regionally in Oklahoma and Missouri and Nebraska, issues with drought management. Obviously, the last year and year and a half has been pretty tough for producers in our state. Getting a little bit of moisture here over the last week or so, but producers are very concerned about available forage supplies, both in terms of standing forage out in range, plus their hay supplies. And so starting to think about how to allocate those over the next several months to get to green up. And then certainly as we approach green up, have we had adequate moisture to support forage production through the spring and early summer. And so there's an ongoing concern about what decision points we need to make and how do we manage both inventory of animals on feed and using our resources as well as supplemental feed stuff. So one of the things that we're talking to producers about is sitting down and writing out a plan based on, if we don't receive X amount of percentage of our expected precip by such and such date, how do we cull cows and cull inventory? And one of the things to think about is, well, where do we spend nutrients in our production system? Certainly growing replacement females is one area. Bred heifers is another area. Mature cows, old cows. And so for many producers have already gone through the process last fall of culling off open cows, old cows, cows with bad feet, bad udders, bad teeth, all those things. If they haven't already done that, they should consider that as their first step. The next step is really looking at places where I have an extra expenditure of nutrients from my farm or ranch to support those replacement females. And usually the first group to go is the open heifers that you may have retained last fall. Those represent over the next several years a pretty significant nutrient draw from your operation. They're likely the first ones to go. The upside of that is they're pretty valuable in the marketing stream right now. So February, March, April heifers going into the marketplace as stocker cattle are pretty valuable. Then the next group are bred heifers that may be starting to calve this spring. Over the next 2 years, additional nutrients required for those. The core idea is to retain as many of the productive, economically contributing cows in your operation. So those middle-aged cows are really the focus. On top of that, thinking about ways to extend the forage that you have available either in hay or pasture. One of the key ways to do that is use an ionophore or a product like rumensin that supports the rumen microbe environment that's favorable to forage digestion. And that'll extend forage utilization about 10%. And it's costs pennies a day, but a really effective way to extend and improve efficiency of that rumen for beef cows. Another key component this time of year is supplementation. If you've got cows on range, supplementation of protein. Protein improves the function capability of the rumen microbes, and so they get better utilization of the forage they consume. So most of our producers have a tendency, since protein is relatively expensive, to skimp on that, but in actuality it really improves the utilization of your forage resource. So it pays to do protein supplementation. Typically the 90 days pre-calving is sort of the cutoff line we like to use to start protein supplementation. And it'll improve the apparent digestibility of your grass products or hay products about 10 points in terms of TDN. So really, really important tool to use when we're in these particularly tight times of forage supplies. On top of that, thinking about appropriate allocation. If you've got old cows or young cows in your production system, starting to separate those in terms of feeding environments so that you can adequately supply nutrients in a targeted way. You'll end up feeding the same amount of feed, but you use it more effectively by separating out those cows that are old and young that require a little more groceries than maybe your mature cows do. And the way to sort those cows into groups is typically on body condition score. We encourage producers to go through last fall and certainly this spring pre-calving and sort those cows into body condition score groups so that you've got those thinnest cows in an environment where you can provide additional nutrients to them and get the most bang for your investment in terms of forage, because right now it's very expensive to buy hay, and so making sure you use that as efficiently as you can becomes really, really important.
Well, thank you, Dr. Weber, for talking to us about drought management and managing our forages in these tough times. Again, talking with Dr. Weber here at the 2013 Cattle Industry Convention.